It's time to look at our second Christmas shoe of the season. We already looked at an Air Force One High ugly Christmas sweater, which is a great shoe to look at, very much seasonal. I suppose there was also the Sean Cliver dunks because they have a winter feel, but not necessarily a Christmas feel. And then we've got this here today, which is the Adidas Superstar Christmas Monster. And what we're talking about is a movie, The Gremlins. And if you're of my generation, this is one of the biggest movies of the season. This was big when I was young, and it's still big for me now that I'm old. One of the questions I have for you guys out there is, which is the classic Christmas movie, the greatest Christmas movie of all times? Because this could be one of the ones that would be up there with many people's shopping list is Gremlins. Great movie, very seasonal, all about Christmas, lots of fun in the film. So what's the greatest Christmas movie of all time? Who knows, but we'll get into that when we talk about Gremlins today. But also taking a look at this shoe, you've got to ask yourself, if it wasn't tied to that movie, would anybody be interested? And I'll be taking you through the shoe today, bit by bit, to give you that answer, to tell you if you would be interested in this shoe without all that Gremlins tie-up or not. And then finally, the last thing to ask that's linked to that as well is, where's Stan Smith gone? How much Stan Smith is left in this shoe? Because to be honest, they've stripped just about all of Stan out of this thing. So we'll get into that too and see how much Stan Smith is left in this guy. So let's do it and get into today's video, all about the upcoming release of the Adidas Stan Smith Christmas Monster. This is the Tokyo Bara 23 Sneaker Channel. Tokyo Bara 23 Sneaker Channel です。毎日アップするので、毎日見てください. And every single day from Tokyo, Japan, I bring you content about upcoming sneaker releases, sneaker news, and sneaker reviews. And it's all about telling you guys what's coming down the line so you can make a decision about whether to get a shoe or not. And then a shoe like this, I think you're going to want to pay attention. If you're interested in superstars, if you're interested in Stan Smith's or Adidas shoes, and you're thinking maybe this is a shoe that I want to get because it's kind of unique, then this is the video for you to see the details and the hits on the shoe and find the story of the shoe, and then make that decision whether you want to part with some of your greenbacks to get yourself a great shoe or not. So bit by bit, let's get through this and talk about the shoe. So we did talk already about Gremlins and whether or not that's the greatest Christmas movie of all time. I probably put it somewhere in my top 20, to be honest. I don't think it'll be that close to the top of the tree. Most people go for It's a Wonderful Life. I think that's the classic Christmas movie, especially if you're from North America. It's a very big popular movie there. In the UK, things like The Great Escape and Escape to Victory, which are always played at Christmas. They're not necessarily Christmas movies, but they're always played at Christmas. So they have that kind of Christmas fuel about it. But Gremlins is up there. You know, it's got that Christmas sort of wintry vibe to it. And there are some elements of Christmas in the movie, even though it's really a comedy horror, and it could be any time of year. Christmas isn't a major theme in it. It just happens to be that's when it's taking part. And it is a great movie. If you don't know anything about it, it's well worth getting into. And you do need to know some details about it to understand this shoe. So for example, I'm going to say the main character. The main character is called Gizmo. And what Gizmo is a little tiny alien called a Mogwai. And the thing about the movie, there's two really big important features in the movie that you just have to get, is that these little furry cute creatures, if you spill water on them, they automatically start multiplying, and you end up with like 10 or 12 or 30 or whatever of these guys if you spill water on them. And if you feed them after midnight, they turn into evil monsters. So there's the two main features of the Mogwai creature. And you can guess what happens in the movie. Somebody spills a jug of water and boom, you've got 10 of these guys. And then they leave a sandwich out, and 9 of these guys have a bite to eat, turn into little monsters, and the original character Gizmo doesn't. And then his owner, who has let these other 9 evil creatures run rampant in his town, and Gizmo and his friends, they all try and get these creatures back and sort of solve the problem. There is an interesting moment where one of them jumps in a swimming pool, so you can imagine what that amount of water does to multiplying these little creatures. But I won't give away any more of the story than that. It's important to know about that stuff because A, the furry part of this shoe makes sense when you understand it's tied to that creature, the Mogwais, or Gizmo in particular, and B, there's some details about that on the shoe that we'll get into today. So that's the story of the shoe. That's what's going going on here. That's why it looks like it looks, and that's why it's tied to the movie. And I'm going to answer that other question about whether or not this shoe would have any interest or power or hype if it wasn't tied to the movie. My answer is no, a flat out no. I don't think people would be interested in this shoe at all if it wasn't for the connection to the movie. In fact, I think they'd look at it and just sort of shake their head, wouldn't even pick it up off the shelf. It's because of the movie. It's the movie that's the most important feature of this shoe, and then the shoe itself. So to be honest, it's all about the movie. And anyone who's a Stan Smith fan out there and looking at this and saying, no, you're wrong, I think if you really think about it, you'd be like, nah, you know, if this didn't have that tie up to the Gremlins, I don't think I'd be buying them. So then let's get into some of the details on the shoes. Some really interesting things going on. There's one particular thing that's very odd to me, and it's to do with the half and half feature of the shoe. Now somehow I'll be showing you a picture back here that shows you that one side of the shoe is brown and the other side of the shoe, I think I'm going to go with tan or beige. Maybe beige is better. Either way, one side's dark and one side's light. Now usually when I make these videos, I'll say the lateral side is dark and the medial side is light, but I can't say that in this video because hopefully this view here, what you'll see is that the right shoe, the lateral side is beige, or did I say beige? Yeah, well, let's go with beige. And the medial side is brown. But the left shoe, the lateral side is brown and the medial side is beige. Hopefully that's showing up here. And that's kind of unusual. Usually what you'd see is the medial on both shoes being brown and the lateral on both shoes being beige, or the opposite. But you wouldn't normally see medial on one and lateral on the other beige, and then medial on one and lateral on the other brown. You wouldn't usually see it this way. So it's an unusual feature of the shoe, and it's easy to go from that to then the main feature of the shoe, which is where there isn't any branding anymore. You usually see Adidas and Stan Smith branding on the back of these guys, but instead of that you've got two mogwai eyes, and they're very realistic for the character. Having big eyes was one of the main features physically of Gizmo, and it's the main piece of I want to say branding, even though it's not branding, but the main detail on the shoe. Everything else is kind of you know, it could be anything. It could be any tie-up or any sort of call out to any movie, but particularly those eyes bring us right back to the Gremlins movie and make it very, very much about that. So but that's the branding on the back. You've got one branding panel in brown and the other one in beige to go with that sort of mismatch effect. And then, like I said, hopefully you're able to see what I'm talking about with the lateral and the medial sides being different on the two shoes. So it's not a mirror. It's not a mirror effect that's going on here. It's a slightly different effect, but it's still very, very cool. And it's also repeated up on the tongue. So if you go around to the front, you'll be able to see that sort of half and half effect that goes on the tongues, and that runs all the way down to the front end of the shoe. What they haven't halved and halved is the toe box. You can't really do that. It would cause some major difficulties in design and maintenance to put a slice right down the middle of a toe box, but they do that with the Yeezys, so maybe they could have done that with the Stan Smiths. But the toe box itself isn't half and half. It's just the lateral and medial panels that are half and half. And staying on that tongue though, you've got zero branding on there. Usually there'd be a sort of rectangle panel with Stan Smith's face and Stan Smith's name written underneath it, but that's all gone. Like I said, with those eyes on the heel, the branding there is gone too. In fact, there is no branding on this shoe at all, except for those two eyes looking to the Gremlins movie. And that's kind of interesting because recently I did a Jordan 1 movie about the center courts, the Jordan 1 center courts, and how they looked like a Stan Smith. And then here we are a couple of days later doing a Stan Smith video about a shoe that doesn't look like a Stan Smith, even though it is a Stan Smith. So there's an interesting sort of balance between those Jordan 1 center courts and then this shoe here. And then the final thing to do is to go and have a look at the tongue. Not tongue, I've already looked at that. The insole on the inside, because this is where you see those warning signs that ties it back to that story of not getting the mogwais wet and not feeding them after midnight. And you can see the warnings on the inside of the shoe there with that line through them saying no water, no food after midnight. But of course, you know, it's a comedy horror movie, so of course that goes wrong in some spectacular ways. But definitely worth checking out. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go check it out. There's a really funny movie theater scene in the movie as well. But it's just a great film, a really funny, kind of nice and gentle Christmas horror story, well worth your time looking at. But these shoes, I'm not so sure about. And maybe you want to tell me in the comments down below where I've got it wrong. But like I said, you know, if it wasn't for the movies, I don't think anybody would be touching them. And the fact is that the movie's just like not that current enough. It's not contemporary enough to push any kind of hype on this shoe. So for me, it's a great looking shoe. It's fun to look at, lots of interesting details, but just that and nothing more. But the drop date's on December 19th, which is only a few days away. So if this is your thing, if this is what you're interested in getting, you know, and putting on your feet, fill your boots, literally. Get them, wear them, enjoy them. It's all yours. So, and with that being said, I think that's a great place to finish this video and do what I do at the end of every single video, which is thank you guys for checking out the content. I do truly appreciate it. And that the last thing to do is to say that I do this every single day. And because of that, you are guaranteed to see me tomorrow.